using both team. Yeah, so I'm recording both from team now and then from this go to meeting. So that should be it. So with this one, it will record into my PowerPoint and I will turn that to MP4, okay, and let it be available for you. All right, can we quickly start now? Sinfile, you can still hear us and you can see the screen. One more ask for you from you. Sinfile, can you see the screen and can you hear? Ish. Sinfile, can you see the screen and can you hear? Ah, please just let's. Oh, she's the only one. And Sinfile, can you hear me? Can you see the screen? You can see it and you can hear me. All right, that's fine. Okay. All right, so let me just do a quick recap of what we've done. Module 2 again. Apology for the break in transmission. All right, so in Module 2, we're looking at the core. We'll be looking at the architecture, which I have taken time to explain. I think everyone understood what is a region pair, availability zone, resource group. Okay. You can stop me once you get to the last place where you were not able to hear me again. Okay, everybody was here when we're talking about resource manager, subscription. Hello, did you see this slide? Okay, so you saw the portal. When I show you the portal, you saw this one to management group. Okay, yes, this one. This is where you stop. Okay, you got through this one. All right. Core workload. Okay, what about this one? Okay. All right, so this one is talking about, go back, okay. Okay, so from here, okay, yep, have I explained this one? All right, so let me explain this. So, okay, so management group makes it easier for us to manage multiple subscriptions. Organizations can have multiple subscriptions for different purpose, for the purpose of making sure that certain people do not overuse the resources they have access to. So for that reason, company can have multiple subscriptions. And to make it easier for them to manage all their subscription for the purpose of reconciliation and payment to Microsoft, then Microsoft created what is called a management group. So if a company has a conglomerate, a company is a conglomerate. If a company has maybe different subsets, maybe a company has they are doing insurance, the company is into banking, the company also has another finance, you know, uh, sub company. They can create subscription for the sub company, and all the subscriptions can be managed under what is called management group. And the maximum management group that one company can have, they can have up to 10,000 management group. And under the management group, they can create up to 6 different levels. They can have several Azure subscriptions. Subscriptions contain resource groups, and you know that resource group also contains the resources. Okay, what are the workload that are available? The Azure workload are so many. I can show you one more time from okay, from the Azure here. You can see that the Azure group. Okay, so you can see. Okay, I was creating this. Wow. Oof. Okay, you were there when I was creating this one. The VM now is up. Okay, so from all services, can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? All right, so from this particular place called all services, you can see all the available services. There are so many. Even under compute, there are 26. Under networking, there are 38. Under storage, there are 16. Under web, so we cannot talk about each of these components. However, we can look at the core components among all the ones that we have. Okay. Okay, welcome, Repiga. You're not here. Okay, Azure Compute Services is one of the services that we have. Azure Compute. I can show you that again. What makes up Azure Compute? So we come here, compute. There are 26 Azure Compute services, 26 under the category of Azure Compute. However, we may not look at all the 26. We will only look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll look at just these 5 as part of our Azure Compute services. Azure has 26 compute services, but we'll only limit ourselves to these 5 for the purpose of this training, being a foundation training. The first one is Azure VM. What is a VM? A VM is a software emulation of physical computer. VM helps to virtualize, okay? It virtualizes our physical computers. It allows us to be able to divide one computer into multiple other computers. That is, if you have one computer that has an operating system like Windows 10, on Windows 10, depending on this processor speed, the memory, okay, and the networking that you have connected to the physical computer, you can create 10 or 5 or 20 other operating system inside of different virtual machine. So for the purpose of the exam, you should note that your virtual machine is an example of what you get only when you subscribe to infrastructure as a service. So if the company did not subscribe to infrastructure as a service, the company will not access virtual machine. They will only be able to work with platform as a service. So how do you create a virtual machine? That's very simple step. Go through it again. So to create a virtual machine, you come here from the beginning, come to all services, not all resources, all services. Then you click on compute. Then you see virtual machine, and you simply click on create. And then you wait for it. It's going to load. So it comes to this place. It will show your subscription here. Then it will ask you to provide resource group name. If I click here, it will show me the existing resource group. While there was a disconnection, I already created this thing. I've gone through it before. So I created this. How did I create? Simply come here. I can create another one. Click on create. I can create, for example, AZ 900. Okay. I can use AZ 900 class 1. I can use this as the name of my resource group. If you want to know what to do under each of these box, what to provide, just bring your mouse to this place. It will tell you what it means. Now I will provide my virtual machine name, the name of the system or the server or the computer. So I can put here AZ 900 2021 as a name. I will specify the region where I want this VM to be hosted. The best approach is to specify the closest region to you. In this case, it is South Africa North. That is the region in Johannesburg. Okay, I can leave, okay, image. This availability option is for me to duplicate the same VM in maybe another region, maybe South Africa West, which is Cape Town, or another place. So I'm not doing that. Now, image is talking about your operating system. Operating system. Okay, I can choose Windows 10. I can choose Windows Server. I can choose any one I want. But of course, if you choose the one that is not open source, you will need to pay for that as well. You need to pay for the licensing. The licensing cost will be included in your cost. So I select Windows 10. Then the scale, the size here is to tell what should be the processor of the virtual machine. What should be the memory, the RAM of the virtual machine? What should be the space, hard disk space on which the OS will be installed? So I can click here. I will see some of the options. Against each of these options, there is a price. So this one means what? One virtual CPU. It will cost me 181.98 rand per month if I choose this option. If I choose this option, it will cost me 6,000. And the difference is because the option of 181 is just giving me 1 gig and it's going to use one processor. The one that will cost me 6,000 rands per month, we use 8 virtual CPU, 8 processor, and it will use 32 gig memory. So the higher the resources that you are using, okay, the higher the cost will be. If you want to see all other sizes, you come here, you click on see all sizes. So to show you all the sizes, there are a lot of them, so much, and they are grouped under what? Series name. D series, B series, okay. You have A series, so it is using the letter A, B, D to group these different resources, and the resource you will use depend on the purpose of creating your virtual machine. So when I'm done, I can close this one here. All right, so I have selected what I want. I just want the basic one, the one that will cost the lowest amount of money. I need to provide the name of the administrator account, that is the username to log in. So here I can put admin if I want to use admin. You can create anyone. Okay, I can put a password. It says admin is a reserved word, so I can't use it. So let me use something else, maybe administrator. Okay, it's also a reserved word, so let me use lab user one. Okay, I can use lab user. Then password that I will use to connect to the VM, I can use any password I know of, I can remember, but it has to be about 12 characters. You try to confirm again that the password is correct. Okay, it says the password is not the same. Wow. Okay, let me just copy this one and paste it here. All right, so it's correct now. Then the next thing is to specify how I want to, whether I want to allow people to access the virtual network from the public internet. If I want to allow people to access from public internet, I will have to click on allow ports, and I will select the port that will be used to access. The available ports are HTTP, that means over the internet without any encryption. I can use HTTPS, which is through HTTP with an encryption. This S means secured HTTP. I can use SSH, that means through the command line, people can access this VM. And then if I have a license already on premise, I can decide to use that license to reduce the cost I'm going to pay. So I click on yes because I have a license. Then from here, you can click on review and create. And review and create will give you a summary of what you want to create. Okay, in advanced topic, you will go through all these ones one by one. Look at, select your disk, networking, but by default, 1, 2, 3, 4 are already created for you. Another thing you need to note is tag. What is a tag? A tag is a name value pair. With a tag, we can categorize our resources. We use tag to make it easier for us to view our resource price, our resource bill, the bill that is given for a particular resource. If you have a tag, you can use the tag to search through your billing invoice to know how much a particular resource costs you. So what are the kind of things you can set here? Click here, you will get an option loaded for you. Okay, so I can use owner, I can specify owner, and then I can say the owner is AZ900 class B, for example. And then you can have many tag. Tags are just descriptive, a way to describe the resources and a way to be able to easily search through your billing reports. Okay, all these ones, the default are already selected for you, and that is the starting point here. So you click again on review and create. It will give you a review of what will be created. The same way I have creating a virtual machine, the same way you can create any other thing. So here it's telling me that based on my selection, I will be paying, initially it shows me how much I will pay per month, average costs. Now, based on the disk, based on the network, based on the management, I will now be paying something around 0. Whatever rand per hour. So if I want to run it for 10 hours, so look at it. It's giving me a rough estimate that what I will be paying is going to be 0.24 rands per hour. So if I run it for 10 hours, for example, it will only cost me 2 rands. If after 2 hours I don't need it again, I can shut down, okay, and then I don't pay again. So when I'm okay with everything, I need to okay, when I'm okay with everything, then I need to click on create, and create will start to create for me my virtual machine with every component that is required to work inside of the virtual machine. So here it will keep deploying. I can be doing refresh. As I do refresh, once it deploy, it will show me the result that has been deployed. So that's a simple way of how to create a virtual machine. All right. So what is an Azure App Services? Azure App Services is a fully managed platform to build, deploy, and scale up your apps. Now, what this means is that in Azure App Services, you don't need to use VM. Why? You don't need to create VM yourself. VM will be created for you. Okay? And the purpose of creating the VM for you is to make sure that developers can bother less about creation of a VM, creation of operating system. It will be created by the computer. What is required is just to write a code in any of these programming language, and the code will run seamlessly using Azure App Services. For the purpose of the exam, Azure App Service is a what? Platform as a service. And that is one difference between this one and VM. A VM is infrastructure as a service. Azure App Service is a platform as a service. That means you do not need to bother about the virtual machine, about the component of virtual machine, the memory, the CPU, all of that will be created for you based on your workload, based on what you need to deploy. Okay, so a walkthrough of how to create app service is also as simple as the one I did before. Okay, you can still see my screen. This is still taking time to run. If I click on refresh, it will keep doing it. To create a workspace, to create app service, a web app, all we need to do is to come to all services, and then you see come under the category of web, and you will see app service. When you click on app service, or when you bring your mouse to app service, it will tell you you can create from here. Click on create. Okay, when you click on create, it will take you to a similar interface like the interface we had when I was trying to create my VM. I will need to either create a new resource group, or I can put it in the same resource group I created before, which is AZ900 class 1. I need to provide my app a name. I can call this app AZ900 class. Okay, that's the name I call it. And then I can decide to say I am creating the app by publishing a code. That means a code that developer has written, or by using a Docker container. Either way. So let me use Docker container. It's faster. Okay. And then where do I want the Docker to be installed? Is it on Windows or Linux? I will choose Linux. Which region? I will choose South Africa. I can search South Africa North. That will be closer to the user, because when we're talking about web app, we are talking about application people we need to access via the internet, via the browser. The closer the region is to the people accessing your web app, the faster the web app will load. So you can see here now, he has created for me. This is the app service. He has created for me. Is going to use a system. It will use a VM. The memory that will be used is 3.5. If I'm okay with it, I can continue. If I'm not okay, if I feel that this one is also expensive, I can click on change size. And here, it will give me opportunity of changing the size that I want. Okay, this is the size for production. This is the size recommended for production. This is the size for isolation. What I want is just a size for development. And I can decide to use what? The size for development, which is this one. Okay, and I click on it, and then once I click on it, I will click on apply, and it will give me this one, which will be smaller than the other one. Okay, when I am done, I can click on next. It will give me a minimal installation that I can use to show you the way this is launched. So this is going to use a single container, and then the image is called quick start, and then the sample is going to deploy sample web application, which is going to use a web server called NGS. Why we call this one platform as a service is that I am not the one that will go and set up this NGS. I'm not the one that will install it on the VM. It will install by itself. And that is why it's a platform as a service. Okay. I can also click on monitoring. Monitoring, I can't do monitoring because this one is a Linux system. It's not a Windows system. Monitoring is supposed to help me to read through the line of my code and suggest improvement. This won't work when you are working with a Windows system. Okay, tag, the same way we put a tag. Every resource you create, you can tag it. Tagging is to categorize your resources and make it easy for you to consolidate billing, for you to search for it when your billing report is run. Okay, here I can also put something like owner. I can put here AZ 900 web app 1, and then review and create, similar to the way this was done. Okay, this one has finished now. That is the VM. You can, since that's finished, I can go to resource. I will see the VM. So this is the VM that's been created. Okay, on this side, this is going to, now he has done the review for me to show me what will be created. If I'm okay with it, I can click on create, and that's just, it will take some time, and then similar page here will show me the deployment in progress. After a few minutes, it will complete deploying, and I can go to my resource. If you want to know if anything failed while you are deploying or succeeded, you come to this place. Here you will get your notification. You see I have one notification here. If I click on it, it will tell me that I have something in progress. So this place will show you notification of what happened to what you were trying to create. All right, so we've been able to see how to create a web app using Docker image. That's what I just showed you by creating app service. All right, so what is a container service? A container is a lightweight, it's a virtualized environment that you do not need to manage the VM. Managing the VM means that you do not need to manage the OS. Your own is just select the OS, just as I showed you, okay, while going through the portal. Just select the OS. Is it white Linux you want or Windows? Also, this container service is a platform as a service. A simple exam question will ask you difference between container service and virtual machine. As a resource in Azure, virtual machine is an example of infrastructure as a service, whereas your container is an example of platform as a service. That is one keynote from here. Okay, so when you have multiple container, okay, multiple container instances, management of the container instances can be bottleneck. To solve the issue with managing container instances, you create an Azure Kubernetes service, which is called orchestration service, or a service that manage the containers that you have when you have several large volume of containers. Okay, a walkthrough of how to deploy Azure Container Instance is also similar to what I did here before. Okay, so now you can see it tells me that my web app has been completed. This web app uses container. So if I click on go to resources, it will take me to the resource page. If you look at this resource page and compare with this one, they look alike. In every resource page, you will have two sides. You have the left side, you have the right side. The left side will, whatever you click on the left side will determine what you see on your right hand side. So if I click on this, it will change what I have here. If I click on this, it will change what I have here. So the left hand side, whatever you click on the left hand side will determine what you will see here. So if I come to this one, the interface is similar. The first thing you will see is overview. From this overview, it gives to me the URL I can use to access my web app. So if I click here, it will launch my web app for me. Okay, it will launch my web app for me. All right, it's loading. So if I have deployed anything in my web app, so you can access the web app from here. Still loading. I can copy it and launch it from maybe Chrome, maybe faster. It's also very slow. Okay, let's continue. Once it loads, we'll come back and see it. All right, so you can see it has loaded it for me. So simple. Now, to get this simple thing done through 5 steps, when you use Azure Platform as a Service, if you want to use the VM to create all the resources yourself, it will take a longer step than just using the Azure web app, which is an example of platform as a service. Okay. All right. Virtual desktop is another compute resource. What's a virtual desktop? It's a way by which our desktop that we use to do our work and our app, the way it is being virtualized and run in the cloud. So what this means is that you can have your full desktop, the desktop you use to work in the office, everything that is on it can be coming from the cloud. That's what they call the virtual desktop. And the advantage of this is that it could help organizations to reduce their costs when it comes to license. Instead of buying license for each desktop, buying license for the desktop OS, buying license for the applications that are running, you can buy license and the license can be shared through what is called pool and multi-section. That means the resources can be pooled by multiple people. Multiple people can concurrently use the same app. It's just like saying your current computer that you have, desktop, and the things you have on it, things like your Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel application, okay, Excel. So all of these Word, Excel, PowerPoint that you have, you can virtualize it. That is, it may be something available for you to use on the internet. And the issue of license, the Microsoft Word installed on your desktop, currently you are the only one using it. But when you use a virtual desktop, multiple people can use the same Microsoft Word. Everybody will just go to start, okay, and then click on Word. The same way you will do. And nobody, one person will not disturb the other because multiple sections. So multiple people can use the same desktop if they are doing the same work and they are using the same application, and that will save a lot of cost when it comes to licensing. Then we have Azure Network Services. Azure Network Services, if you go back here again, just go and see your, okay, if you look at this, if I come here under services and I click on networking, how many networking resources do I have? Can you see? I have 38 networking resources. 38. So we cannot talk about all these 38 in a 1 day training. Even in a 5 days training, we can't talk about all of them. So we only pick few ones among them, the core ones among them. Okay, and the core ones among these is your virtual network. That's the first one we'll talk about. Okay, and we'll talk about other key ones again on the slide. So we talk about the virtual network. Virtual network is what enable your resources to communicate with each other. You know, when you have a virtual machine, the virtual machine cannot communicate to another virtual machine except that virtual machine has what they call network interface card. When you have a network interface card, to communicate with another computer, you need to go through a network. Okay, in the data center or in our office, we have what they call LAN, local area network. Sometimes you use Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi too is a network. Wireless fidelity is also a network. Okay, so similar to connecting your computer to your company resources through Wi-Fi, through LAN, you can connect different resources that are inside of Azure to each other by using virtual network. You also have the virtual private network. If you want to connect from your office computer, which is called on-premise location computer, to any resources that is using that is hosted in the cloud, you will need to use virtual private network, which is an encrypted traffic network. That means it will ensure that the communication between on-premise and the cloud is encrypted to prevent people from hijacking the communication. Apart from using virtual private network, you can also use express routes. The difference between express routes and virtual private network is that virtual private network, you need to use public internet. It is the only thing is that there will be an encryption, but you need to go through public internet. Whereas when you use Azure Express Route, you are not going through the internet. There is a pipe, a dedicated, okay, private pipe or private connection between your data center, which is on premise, and the Azure network. So, and this can be achieved by working with some telecom company that has partnered with Azure to be able to connect to create a direct pipe from your office data center to the Azure data center. Okay, how do you create a virtual network? The same procedure. I'll just show you one step. Virtual network is here under network. If you come here, you click on create. So simple. And it will give you an interface similar to the interface you have seen before. Okay, so here it's asking me to create. I click on create. And then you can see this interface is similar. You start with what? Specifying your subscription. Then you provide your resource group like this. You provide a name. Okay, I can call it AZ900 class. And then the region, I can choose my, now this region will correspond to my resource group. So I can leave it as this region, and I can click on review and create. And that is how simple it is to create. After the review is passed, I click on create. It will create it for me in few minutes. That's just how to create your virtual network. Okay, if anybody has any question, you can just put it in the chat. There's a chat window where you can put your questions. All right, the other part is Azure Storage Service. What is Azure Storage Service? Azure Storage Service is the storage, that is your storage resources. When we talk about storage resources, there are different type of storage resources based on what you want to store. What are the things we normally store? We can store what is called unstructured data. Example of unstructured data is any data that is not in tabular form. Any data that is not in rows and columns can be considered to be unstructured. Okay. Once this is structured data because it's in tabular form. So data you have in a tabular form is called a structured data. Data that you have that is not in tabular form can be data inside of Microsoft Word. Okay? When you have data inside of a Microsoft Word, that is not a structured data. A structured data is data in things like what? Excel. Because Excel will give you rows and columns, or data from other spreadsheet application. So when you have unstructured data like text, like binary data, what do you call binary data? Binary data are video. A video file contains binary data. Okay, your picture file also contains binary data. Okay, so when you want to store your video, the best storage resource you can use is called container storage or blob. Another one is called disk storage. What's a disk storage? Disk storage is used to store virtual machine. Okay, that is your virtual machine that you are installing. The OS instead of the virtual machine will be stored inside of the disk storage. Azure File is used to create available network file share. That means with Azure File Storage, you can create what you call a file share, and that is this one. You can create a folder that will be shared among the people in your company. And to create a share folder in Azure, we call that Azure File. Instead of calling it share folder. On the desktop, you call it share folder. But in Azure, it is called Azure Files. All right. Now, when you have any of the three storage, okay, accounts or storage resource created, you can also specify your access tiers. Access tiers means that the data you are keeping in any of these three places, as access tiers is asking, is that data a hot data? Is it a cool data? Is it an archive data? What is an example of archive data? Archive data are data that are backup data. For example, when you back up your email, maybe your email space is already almost used up. You can back up, you can archive some email. So that is an archive data. When you have a data, okay, when you have a storage that is keeping data of customers who are visiting our web shop. If you have customer visiting web shop, okay, now customer visiting web shop are expected to visit every day, may not be the same customer, but web shop website, okay, is a busy website. It's a site that people visit every time. Different people they buy, okay, and do a lot of things on that. So that will contain hot data. A data of a web shop is an hot data. Then you can also have a cool data. A cool data can be maybe HR application. Where you are storing your HR application can be a cool data. A cool data because you don't necessarily, for example, a leave portal, you don't create leave every day. You don't People don't create leave every time. Okay, every staff doesn't create, so that can be a cool data. The reason why you need to specify your access tier is because the costs that Microsoft will charge you for using auth is higher than using cool. The cost of cool is higher than using archive. So one of the ways you can reduce cost is by selecting appropriate access tier for your storage. Okay, to create a blob storage, the same procedure I have gone through before is what you go through. You want to create, okay, this one has been created now, you can go to it. To create, you need to come here, all services, okay, and then you come to storage and you create a storage account. Storage account is where we create our storage. So here I can click on create, okay, and then it will open for me create. So you can see similar to what I had before, I must specify my resource group. I can create a new one. I can use the one that is providing for me. I can create a new one if I like. I can I'll specify the name of the resource. Let's say I put AZ 900 class 10. Okay. Let's say today's date 2021, the year. And then I can click on review and create. It's as simple as that. So you can see that to create all these resources, it does not take too long time. Just 2, 3, 4 click, you are there already. All right. When you talk about storage, you also have what they call Azure Database Services. That is talking about the services that Azure provide to undo your database workload. You have 4 of them. Cosmos DB, that is the one that is globally distributed. That means if you want your database to be distributed across the globe, all over the world, for the purpose of ensuring that if there's a failover of any region or geography, your data is not lost. So you can use Azure Cosmos DB. You can also use Azure SQL database, which is a relational database, okay, as a service that is provided for you. You can use Azure database for MySQL. You can use Azure database for Postgre. And on Azure, you can use other database. We are only talking about the database that is owned by Microsoft. There are other database from Oracle you can use. You can use other database from other provider like Oracle, even inside of your Azure database. You can use SAP HANA. That's another database again. All right, so SQL Managed Instance is another database that you can use to be able to take advantage of your existing license. Some company already paid for SQL Server on premise. If they want to use the same thing in the cloud, they will pay less because they can use their existing license to get discounted rates on SQL Managed Instance, okay, by using Azure Hybrid benefits. One important thing also to note is that this Azure Managed Instance is a platform as a service. It's not a it is not an infrastructure as a service, meaning that you don't need to set up the virtual machine on which the SQL server will run. That is why we call it platform as a service. All right, to create a database, the same procedure I went through again. I went through before. I can come here and then all services. You come to database group here, and then if you want to create this one, you come here and click on create, and it will create it for you. It is just the same procedure. You wait for less than 1 minute. So it tells you which database do you want to use. I can say I want to use a single database. I click on create. Okay, you can see this interface is similar. Very, very similar. I will select my resource group, or I can create another one if I want. I'll provide the name of the database. I can call it AZ900 2021. I can come here, talk about the server on which I want to install it. Okay, since there's no server now, I'll create a new server. This is a database server. Provide the name AZ900, okay, 2021. All right, the name must be unique. All right, so it will ask me for the password. Okay, the login, SQL admin login. I can provide here the login name. I can call it lab user. That's my login name. My password, I can use a password I can remember. Okay, it will ask me again to confirm the password. Okay, where do I want to host my database? I can decide to say leave it in US or keep it in South Africa North. Okay, South Africa North. And then I click on OK. So with that, it will populate this for me. I've created my server. The next thing, if I want to use Elastic Pool, it will tell me what it is. From here, you can read what Elastic Pool is. It helps to reduce the cost of running your SQL server. And then it will tell me what kind of compute it will use. It tells me it's going to use 2 core and 32 gig storage. If I feel that this is too much, I can't afford it, or it's too much for what I need, I can come here and do my own configuration again. Select another cheaper configuration that I may want. Okay. And then after selecting, I just need to click on what? Review and create. It will give me an idea of how much it will cost me. It will cost me 8,402 per month to run the SQL server. If I want it, I'll say create. And then, so that's how simple is it to create a database. After it has created, we can also run a query. Okay, very simple to do as well. Click on next here. You can explore Azure Marketplace. What's a marketplace? Marketplace is where you can get other softwares that are created by several companies and developers that partner Microsoft. So you can get things like open source container platform. You can get some virtual machine that's already that has been pre-installed. You can also build application. You can deploy application. So many companies that want you to use their software for free for certain months or week, they can upload it inside of Microsoft Azure Marketplace. So the Azure Marketplace has thousands of solutions, thousands of softwares, thousands of images that developers can use to do their work, that company can also use to try out an application before buying it. Okay, and this ends this lesson. But before I end, let me just show you the marketplace. To get to marketplace, you come to all. Okay, if you scroll down, down here, you see order. Under other category of resources, these are different categories that exist. If you want to see all other one, you come here, and from here you can see information about your marketplace. Let's come to all. So you can explore your marketplace from, okay, so under general, please check under general here, you can see marketplace. Okay, so if you click on marketplace, you can search for thousands of softwares that Microsoft partners have developed. See many of them: AI solution, Ubuntu, okay, several solutions that are from marketplace. Network solution, look at this. This is a security solution, okay, Barracuda. You can see a whole lot of solutions in marketplace. Okay, so that ends this lesson. Any question before we start lesson 3? Any question? Are you good? Okay, so I'll launch module 3 now. Okay, so in module 3, we want to talk about core solutions available in Azure. What are the core solutions available in Azure? We'll look at solutions in IoT, solutions in um, big data, solutions that can support machine learning, that can support artificial intelligence. And then we'll look at the tools you can use to work with Azure. You can access Azure through Portal, which has been what I've been using. You can also use PowerShell, which will allow you to write Microsoft PowerShell script. You can use CLI, which will allow you to run Linux-based script called Batch script. You can also use other API by using, you can use REST. You can use REST API. With a REST API, you can access your Azure resources and manage it. We also look at advisor, monitor, and service health. Okay, what are the available, some of the available solutions on Azure? Available solutions on Azure goes beyond this. These solutions are solutions that can help with Internet of Things, that can help with big data. That is talking about these ones. It will help you with big data, okay, doing a big data analysis, analyzing millions, billions of record. You can also use machine learning, cognitive services, Azure bot services to provide automation. You can use machine learning services to be able to recognize, okay, recognize people by their face, their name. You can also use a serverless computing. We've mentioned this before. You can also automate your deployments by using DevOps. You can use GitHub Action, as well as a DevOps Lab. Okay, what is Internet of Things or IoT? IoT is the ability for devices to gather and rely information, for data analysis. IoT is ability for devices to be able to gather information and send the information. For example, if you have, a robot, okay, so the robot we have that is helping us with our traffic, That robot can become Internet of Things if we attach a sensor. So behind Internet of Things is a sensor. So the sensor is the device that will gather information and relay it. Gather information, like if you use the example of a robot, it can help us to do a count of, we can attach, for example, a camera that will be taking picture of every car that passes when the light, when the when the robot light changes to red, how many car passes, okay? When it was green, how many passes? And as it gets the number, it will feed it into a remote system which will be used for analysis. So Microsoft has three products to support Internet of Things. The first one is called IoT Central. That is where you manage all your Internet of Things using the solution Microsoft provide. It's a software as a service. That means you don't install anything. All you do is just to set up your own, okay, by connecting to your own sensors. So it makes it easy to connect, monitor, and manage your IoT without installing operating system on the Azure. We also have IoT Hub, which is also a managed service hosted in the cloud that can help us to collate all the messages. Like we mentioned before, that Internet of Things is ability for device to gather and relay message. So when the message is gathered, the message need to be relayed. It need to be sent to a storage. And the storage that does that is called IoT Hub. Also, you have a way by which this is being secured. That is called the Azure Sphere. Azure Sphere is a way by which the Internet of Things is being secure, or things that are internet connected devices. Internet connected devices are also IoT devices. All right. So how do you create IoT Hub, which is where the relayed messages from IoT devices is kept? The same procedure that I used before is what you have to use to achieve that. So to achieve that, you come to this place under your services and come and check, okay, IoT, check under analytics, okay. You want to create event hub. So we want to create event hub. So event hub is under analytics. It's not, okay, you can see here Internet of Things, okay. Internet of Things, there is there is Internet of Things here under all services, and the first thing you see is there, you see there is IoT Hub. The same procedure, you come here, once you bring your mouse to this place, it will give you opportunity of creating without even clicking elsewhere. So when you bring your mouse, then you see create, you click on create. The procedure is similar to the procedure I have used to create all other resources. So here, remember again, it will always give you opportunity of selecting the subscription you want to use and the resource group you want to use. So I can use the same resource group I have created before. Where do I want my Internet of Things up? Where do I want the data stored? I can choose East US, but because I'm in South Africa, I can choose South Africa. Okay, not. If I choose East US, it does not mean people in South Africa don't have access to it, but it will be slower. The closer a region is to the customer, the faster it will be. Okay, and my IoT Hub name, I can create a name for it. I can call it traffic robots. Okay, and I can click on create and review. It will take few seconds to validate. After that, I'll click on create, which is the similar procedure I have used in the past to create other. So now it has done the validation, it has passed. One of the things you need to check before you create, always see how much will it cost me to run this thing I'm creating. It will cost 458 rands per month. Okay, I want to accept it. I click on create, and then it will go to the interface, which is the same interface you have been seeing before. Okay, deployment in progress. After a while, it will fully deploy, and like other resources, once that's fully deployed, you'll be able to go to the resources and review the resources that have been created. Okay, all right. So this, I created here a walk through to be able to show you what I've just shown you now. So I can just So all these ones that I have here, okay, this is like a recording of how to create IoT. Instead of coming to, you can search for, you can create an IoT and you can make use of it. Okay, so I can give you access to where these videos are available so you can actually go through it. All right. Okay, the next one is big data and analytics. What are the platform that Microsoft provides for people to be able to perform big data and analytics workload? There are three common ones. Okay, there are more than three, but we'll look at these three. And there's what they call Azure Snap Analytics. That is a way by which the data warehouse can be hosted in the cloud. So Azure Snap Analytics hosts your data warehouse in the cloud. It's said to be a modern data warehouse hosting platform. Okay, with Azure Snap Analytics, your cloud-based enterprise data warehouse can be hosted. What is a data warehouse? Just as the name suggests, data warehouse, where data from different sources, where they are being saved for the purpose of analyzing the data from several sources. You need to store them in a central location. That's what we call a data warehouse. The next one is Azure HD Insight. HD stands for Hadoop. Hadoop is one of the Apache tool, okay, that you use, or software that you use for big data. Big data means massive data. So Hadoop is an open source. You can run the open source inside of Azure, and to do that you create Azure HD Insight. We also have what they call Azure Databricks, which is based on Apache Spark. Apache is also an open source application which is being used for analyzing big data. The only difference between the Azure Databricks and other free one is that with a Databricks, it provides end-to-end way of doing a project on data, big data engineering, as well as machine learning analysis. All right, artificial intelligence and machine learning. Machine learning is provided for you. That is, the support to run machine learning workload is provided in the cloud. And with the Azure Machine Learning platform, you can develop a machine learning model. You can train your model and deploy different machine learning models into Azure Machine Learning. Also, you can have your cognitive services. What are cognitive services? Cognitive services are services that can help you to enable your applications. What are applications in this case? Enable your applications like your web portal. Okay, it can enable your application like your web portal to be able to see, to hear, to speak, to understand, and interpret the need of user. A simple example of these cognitive services is a situation where on your web portal, if somebody upload a picture with cognitive service can tell you that this picture is a picture of a male, it's a picture of a female. With cognitive instance services, it can tell you a guess of the age of the person. You can also try it yourself. If you go to Azure Cognitive Services, upload your picture there. It will tell you based on your picture, it will tell you are a male or female. It will tell you your age. That your age is likely to be 37, 45, thereabout. That is the power of artificial intelligence. The same way human being can look at another human being and guess how old the person is. The computer can also be trained to guess people's age, to guess the gender of people. And not only human being, to also even work with categorizing things like animals. You know, we have wild animal and we have domestic animal. You can use your cognitive service to identify if a particular picture of an animal or video of an animal is a wild animal or is a domestic animal. All that are the possibility of cognitive services. which falls under AI and machine learning. Okay, another one we have is Azure Bot Service. With a bot service, what's a bot service? A bot service is simply a software robot. Bot simply means a software robot. So Azure Bot Service can help us to develop intelligent enterprise grade bots, enterprise grade software robots. With this Azure Bot Service, your company can create on things like Telegram, on Telegram, on your company websites, okay, on your company WhatsApp. If you have a WhatsApp number for the company, you can integrate your Azure bot services with your Telegram, with the website, with WhatsApp, even with things like Twitter. Okay, it can help you to provide response to Twitter. It can help you to answer, to provide customer service to Twitter people, okay, to people who subscribe or who are following you on Twitter, to people who click on your WhatsApp link, to people who visit you on the website, okay, to Telegram also, those who have you on their Telegram. That is the power of AI and artificial intelligence. Serverless computing, I've mentioned this before. Serverless computing means you are creating either a codeless, this one means codeless. Codeless means without writing a code, you can simply create a workflow. A workflow involves clicking different things and grouping them together to orchestrate your task. A simple example of this is you can ensure that through a logic app, each time somebody visits your somebody who is following you on Twitter, if someone tweets anything that is not good, maybe somebody tweets something like bad experience, bad customer service, once you specify keywords that you are looking for, okay, with the keywords, you put the kind of keywords you don't want to see or you want to address immediately. So each time keyword like this is being typed, okay, under your Twitter account or whatever social media accounts you have, a trigger will be created to send you email. Sending you email is one of the ways you can end your workflow. The workflow will start by monitoring of Twitter page, Facebook page, and looking for some keywords. We call them sentiments. Okay, words that relate to sentiments. And based on words that you have specified that relate to sentiment, you can get a mail sent to you. That is, so to do that, you don't need to write a code. And if you don't want to write a code, you use Azure Logic App. However, you can still write a code. You can write a code in Java. You can write a code with Python. You can write a code with JavaScript. Okay, you can write a code with C Sharp. And the code will only fire when there is an event. Another example of event is when somebody decides to type anything that is negative about you in any of your social media page. An Azure function can be started. And so the serverless computing is just to provide you all the resources like the CPU, the virtual machine, the RAM you need to be able to carry out what you expect, to carry out the workflow defined either through a code. So here we write a code which can be in any of these languages, okay, or we use the codeless, and that is called a serverless experience. All right, to create a job function is also simple. We go through the same procedure of what I have explained before. If you come here, okay, if you come to all services, all right, and then you come to, okay, from here, if you come to AI plus machine, you can from there create your cognitive, you can create your bots, you can create machine learning. All right, you can also come to look for, okay, under compute, you have your function app, which can help you to create a serverless computing infrastructure. All right, so I gave that as example here. Uh, so this is a video that can also show you how to implement Azure function. Okay. All right. So develop your app with with DevOps and GitHub. Microsoft also provide some platform to be able to develop apps. This platform is being used by so many developers. Okay. And this platform is categorized into two paths: DevOps tools and GitHub. Okay, GitHub is an open source. It's been bought by Microsoft anyway. So with Azure DevOps, developers can collaborate in the sense that developers can work on the same project together with other developers in their company or with other developers in a partner company. And when they work together, they can create all their assets together in pipeline. They can ensure that they do a kind of a project management. They can manage their development like a project using Kanban board. Under Kanban board, they can create something like to do, identify what they need to do. They can create something like doing what they are currently doing. They can also have another group for done. Okay, they can have these three categories under Kanban board, and it will be visible to all the people who are working together under the same Azure DevOps account. Also, GitHub is a software development hosting. With GitHub, we host our version control or source code management. That is, the different version of software is being hosted in a GitHub. Different version of software created by companies or source code. When we talk about software, we are talking about the real code that was used to develop different software can be stored in GitHub. We also have GitHub Actions for Azure. With a GitHub action, you can automate the deployment of your software. GitHub will store your software version. When the software is stored, you want the software that is stored to go and automatically run on Azure. Then you use GitHub Action for that. We also have Azure DevOps Dev Test Lab. With Azure Dev Test Lab, you can quickly create environments while minimizing waste and controlling costs. So to be able to create environment for developer, you can use Azure Dev Test Lab. This will create environment that will not cost the company so much money. Okay, so that is one of the reasons we said there should be multiple subscriptions. So if a company wants to create a subscription for developers only, one of the things they need to use is to create this one for them: Azure Dev Test Lab. All right, what are the tools you can use to manage Azure? How can you connect to Azure? You can connect through Portal, which you have all seen. I will show you how to connect with PowerShell, okay, and then CLI. Both PowerShell and CLI are command prompts, but this one is used to run Linux command, okay, while this one is used to run only Microsoft PowerShell command. That's what you can run inside of your PowerShell, Microsoft PowerShell command. Okay, here we call it bash script. That's the name of the common script we run here, bash script. Okay, and this command you can run it through a Cloud Shell account. You have to create a Cloud Shell account. A Cloud Shell account is like a storage account, and you can also download Azure mobile app. You can access your Azure through a mobile app. Through a mobile app you can download on your laptop. So we look at Azure Advisor, Resource Manager templates, Monitor, and else. So the tools that are provided by Azure to manage your Azure, there are many of them. This is one tool. This is another one. This is another one. Okay. You've got several tools. Okay. These are 6 common ones. I can show you from here. Remember, when you come to all services, you will see on this side, if you click on monitoring, okay, if you click on monitor alone, it shows you there are 9 you can use to monitor. Let's see again. Okay, under management and governance, it tells you there are 28 tools you can use to achieve that. So you can monitor all the things you are doing by through Azure Portal. you can manage your tools. You can manage your Azure resources through Azure Portal, PowerShell, command prompts, okay, CLI command line interface, through the Cloud Shell, through your REST API, through mobile app, through the Azure Portal. And all of these management tools can work with Azure Resource Manager. Azure Resource Manager is what we use to create, that will contain scripts, okay, to create multiple, if you want to create multiple resources instead of creating them one by one, okay, instead of creating them one by one, you can create multiple resources by scripting them inside of the Azure Resource Manager. All right, so a walkthrough on how to create VM with Azure Resource Manager, we can look at that, okay. Then also you can create a VM with PowerShell. I'll show you that as well. You can create command with CLI as well. I will show you how that is done. So with Azure CLI, you can decide to install it locally. That is, Azure CLI, you can download it. It's a software. You can download it, and when you install it locally, now without downloading, you can also install it inside of a PowerShell, through a PowerShell, and you can be able to execute command that will interface with your resources. Okay, we'll look at how to do that. Okay, before we start this, let me just show you quickly. Okay, can you see my screen? If you want to work with your Azure, one of the tools for managing Azure, we said it's a portal. This is the portal we are talking about. The other thing is through a shell. You can see, if you click on this particular one is the Cloud Shell. Through this Cloud Shell, it will provide us a command line interface through which we can write either a PowerShell script, which is Microsoft script, or we can write bash script, which is on Linux system. So I click on this, it will open for me under the portal. If I don't want to open it under the portal, I can also come to another page and type shell.portal shell.azure.com. This will also open the same thing that is opening under here. You can open it for me as well. It will ask me to log in. I provide my login detail. So I can decide to work with it under the portal if I like to. And here you can see I can work with it either through a batch. A batch is representing Linux command. And then I can also use PowerShell, either of the two. It will tell me, do I want to switch to PowerShell? I can say yes. Okay, it will switch to power. I can also increase this one. So it will switch from, so it has switched to PowerShell. As you can see, this is representing Microsoft interface that you see when you go to command prompt of your Microsoft. So this is PowerShell, PS, PowerShell. If I want to go back again, I can come here and click on bash. It will reverse back to a bash shell for me. So this can, when you click it here, it will open under. You can decide to also type, you can see, you can decide to type shell.azure.com. It will open it for you to fill the whole space. Either way, you can work with your Azure command line. Okay, then you have the Azure Advisor. What can Azure Advisor do for you? You can analyze your deployed Azure resources through Azure Analyzer. Azure Advisor. So Advisor can give you recommendation based on best practice so as to be able to optimize your investment in Azure. So with Azure Advisor, it will tell you how reliable, okay? You can also get information about security. You can get information about performance. You can also get information about the costs, how much you have consumed so far. Okay, and you can also maintain operational excellence when you take advice of your Azure Advisor. So where do we get Azure Advisor? Let me open here and show you. So if you come here, let me come to this one. Okay, if I come to all services, I want to pick the one I have created. You can always type here as advisor. Okay, we put Azure Advisor. can see Azure Advisor. So if you type advisor, it will give you, say, advisor. So this is advisor. It will look at your subscription and say, based on this subscription, oh, it will tell you information about costs, about security, reliability, all of this information you can get. And to get to advisor, so simple. Just come to search, type advisor. It will take you there. Okay? Azure Monitor. What can you do with Monitor? Monitor can help you to maximize availability and performance of your application. And how does it do it? Azure Monitor collects, analyze, and it can act on your behalf. It can act on your behalf when it gets any information from cloud or from on-premise. So from your on-premise, you can be sending information to Azure to monitor for you. From the resources you already have in the cloud, you can also send information into Azure Monitor. So Azure Monitor will collect information into a workspace, and that information can now be analyzed through these other services. So it can provide you a customized dashboard. It can also take some action on your behalf. For example, your Azure Monitor can monitor your virtual machine. If you discover that the virtual machine CPU, or what they call vCPU, is maybe near 90% utilized, with Azure Monitor will get the information that CPU usage is now 90%. You can create an automation script that Azure Monitor will use to make sure that if it discover a particular VM is 90% used, another VM will be created. And another VM that is created will now have to take care of the, so part of the workload here will be changed. That means it will help to do a load balancing. It will load balance and ensure that your CPU is probably reduced to maybe 50% utilization. Okay, so you can take action through Azure Monitor. You also have smart alerts. You can be getting alerts. You can get alert via emails. You can get alert via text message. The alert will tell you via SMS. You can get alert via SMS. Alert of the current state of your resources. If any resource needs your attention through the alert and SMS, you will know. All the activities that is carried out is being logged. Every user activity, every time you click, and every time anybody access any resources, either through command line or through the portal, it will log it and you can analyze it. You can also get application insights. Application insight can look at your code and give you an advice to say, oh, inside your code, you are using high level of lock. Probably the lock you are using is disturbing a lot of transaction from taking place. That is Azure Monitor. Where is Azure Monitor? Again, you can click, simply access it here. Just type here, monitor. When you type monitor, it will give it to you. Click on monitor. The same way I click on advisor, this is monitor. And from here, you can monitor any of your resources that you have created. Okay, Azure Service Health. There's also what they call Azure Service Health. And to get to this page, all you need to do is just come here again, come to your portal, type Service Health. Okay, Service Health. Click on it. So it gives you information. Okay, so here you can see you want to get information about. So it tells me I have 4 regions. Okay, I can select the region where I want to get service health information about, and I can select the services that I want information about. Here, there are about 186 services selected. So that is similar to what you have here. So this one has been created. So you can see with your service health, you can evaluate the impact of Azure service issues. Any issue that a particular Azure service is having, you can get information about the impact under your service health. And when you get this information, it will also help you to provide guidance and support and how issue can be resolved. Okay, and every update about resolution you will get it from Azure Service Health. All right, so the Service Health can give you personalized view of the health of your Azure services and the region being used. Okay, because Azure resources are also being maintained from time to time. Okay, it's being maintained. So when there is a maintenance, the information about all the services affected by maintenance will be communicated through Azure Service Health. So you get communication about when there will be a downtime. You get communication about the planning that Microsoft has relating to maintenance, and you also get information about how you can ensure you don't have a downtime. Okay, ARM again is here. What is ARM? ARM templates is a JavaScript object notation file. It's a JSON file. What's a JSON file? A JSON file is a JavaScript file which actually is written out in a format where you have one part here, okay, one on part on the left side, there will be a full column, and you have something else on part B, one on the right, one on the left, and you distinguish them with your full column. Okay, developers are used to this a lot. JavaScript, those who have knowledge of JavaScript. So with this, what can you do? With ARM templates, you will be able to create and deploy Azure infrastructure without writing any code. You can do that. And this ARM template is very declarative. You can declare all the things you want set up, and you can reuse it. Okay, and you can automate the Azure template. You can automate the creation of what you want to create, and you can also build your template in modules. You can validate your templates, and you can export the code. You can copy the code from somewhere to another place. Okay, I will show you that later. All right, before I go to module 4, let me quickly show you that. Okay, Azure templates. Anytime you are creating a resource, there will be Azure template for you. So let me create another resource here. Let's assume I want to create a compute. Okay, let's assume I want to create virtual machine. I click on this virtual machine. Okay, I can click here and click on create virtual machine. All right, as I'm creating it, let's say I just select quickly this same resource group. I create AZ10000. Okay, I select everything as normal. Let me choose, um, okay, just create something random. Okay, and then I leave this as none. I click confirm. All right, so I click create. Never. So while I'm creating this, please look down here. Can you see? Download a template for automation. So what I have just done now, if I click on download a template for automation, this template is an Azure Resource Manager template. So what I have just done by clicking through 3 steps, this is the translation of it. If you want to write a code for it, it could take about 176 line of code. So I can download it so that I can reuse it. Okay, it has downloaded for me a quality template. I can also save it in a library, which will be on your portal. Okay, and I can also decide to redeploy it as well. Okay, all right. So that ends lesson 3 or module 3. Any question on module 3? Can we continue? All right, thank you. Okay, so let's go to module 4. Module 4, okay. All right, module 4, we want to talk about security. What are the security the security options available in Azure? So here we'll look at some services which Azure provide to manage security of all your resources that you may have to create or services that you may have to use. We'll look at the security center, resource hygiene, key vault, sentinel, dedicated host, and we'll also look at the network security, okay, which will tell us that we need to have layers of security. And then we also look at how we can prevent one of the common network security, which is called DDoS, distributed denial of service. We'll look at how to prevent that as well. So we look at security tools and features available. Okay, the common ones are one, Azure Security Center. Okay, that is one of the tools that Microsoft provides for you to manage security. Not only security, from here you can manage compliance of policy, security alerts. You can also get information about your security score. How secure is your Azure infrastructure? Okay, or how secure are all the resources you have created on Azure? Then you can also use Azure Sentinel. Azure Sentinel is a special software that is able to do SIEM service. SIEM service is SIEM. Okay, when you want to do end-to-end security, and a security that is not only restricted to the application in Azure. You can use SIEM. Okay, so this is a SIEM which we're going to look at. It handles security incidents and event management. That is what this one will do for you. And we have key vaults where we'll keep our security or authority or our security key, which we use for connecting to any of the resources. It has to be well kept in key vault. We also look at dedicated hosts. Dedicated host means a company can decide to say, I don't want to share my VM. I don't want to share my um, server with anybody else. I want a dedicated server, so to say, like a dedicated hardware on which all my VMs will run, and every other thing I need to set up, I will be using my own dedicated server. All right, so there's what they call Azure Security Center. With Security Center, you can get security recommendation. It can help you to block after detecting any malware. Automatically, it will do that for you. It can help you to identify and analyze any potential attack. Attack here means attack by hackers. It can also help you to provide just-in-time access for ports. That is, if you want to open a port like port 80, which is to open a public HTTP port, you can decide to open it for just you can start to open the port for a certain time, maybe for 1 day, for 2 hours. How do you get to your security center? I will show you that now. How do you launch security center? Okay, let me go show that. All right, so security center, you can launch it. Simply come here and type security center. Just type security. You can look for security center. Click on it. It will give you security center information per your subscription. So this is my own now currently. Okay, and then it can display my secure score, compliance, all these detail I can get. So it says you may be viewing limited information. To get a particular one, I click here. So if I give permission to be able to get security admin permission, submit. So security center will always populate all this information that you can use to know the state of the security of your application. All right, so this will be populated very soon. It will give the secure score. You can see all other security tools from here. Okay, you want to know about regulation. How are you complying with a particular regulation? You come to this place, you get to know about that. All right, so Azure Security Center capability. What can you do? Like I mentioned before, just before I came to this slide, you can run policy compliance information to be sure that the people who are accessing your resource group those who are creating resources in your tenants, in your subscription. Tenant here refers to something like your Active Directory, okay, the Azure Active Directory domain. That's like what your tenant refers to. So you can get information about whether you are compliant or not. Also, you can access new and deploy resources to ensure they are configured properly. You can do continuous assessments. Every time you deploy, it will assess it for you. You can also do a tailor recommendation. You can also do a threat protection. All of this you can do inside of Azure Security Center. Okay, and I can show you that again before we start Sentinel. So I think it says I have it now. Let me come to overview. So I came to here, I type security, and then it will take me here. So now it has given me permission, so I can see my secure score. It says I have only scored 17%. That means there are some things I need to add in. You can see it here. It says to add in these resources and improve your score. It gives me recommendation. I click on recommendation if I want to take the recommendation. If I want to know information about the compliance level of what I am doing on my Azure platform, I will come here, click on regulatory compliance, and from there I can drill down to see. It says, okay, out of 40 compliance control, it tells me that currently I've only passed what, 20. I can see recommendation as to the one I did not pass. So it's telling me my network security is not good. You can see it in red. Identity is not good enough. Data is not well protected. So it shows me the things I need to improve upon so that I can be compliant. Okay. Another tool for security is called Azure Sentinel. Sentinel is a security information management, which I call SIEM. It's a security information management and security. So it is both a SIEM as well as a SOA. A SOA means is able to do automated response. It will get the information and then it will respond. It is very active. So with Sentinel, one of the important part of Sentinel is that with Sentinel, you can collect data from different sources. The sources can come from your on-premise, it can come from the cloud, it can also come from another provider. So there are connectors and integration. For example, if a company has service they are running on another cloud like AWS, they can use Azure Sentinel to know if there is any security breach on their AWS by using the connector of AWS, and they will be able to, so it will be feeding, so you can collect information from another cloud. After the information is collected, it will detect with a threat intelligence, it will detect if there's any threats on the data collected, or based on the data collected, it will investigate. After investigating, it will also do respond. Respond can be shut down or close a particular open port. Okay, and the Sentinel is able to do this because of AI and machine learning that is actually behind it. There is a lot of machine learning, okay, and AI services running with Azure Sentinel. Okay, how do you access Azure Sentinel? Just to show you again, simple, just come here, type Sentinel, and to show you Azure Sentinel. And then you can create a Sentinel if you want to. It goes through the same procedure whereby we create. So it creates a workspace, you give it a name, create it, give it a name, okay, similar to the one we've done before. Ask me for resource group, and then I'll provide my instance name, AZ900, okay, workspace, and then region. I can select my region where that data should be kept. I can still select South Africa. Let me see. Okay, South Africa North, and then click on review. Why do I need review and create? So that I can get a validation that this thing will not fail. That's one. I can also have an idea of how much it will cost me to run these analytics, or to run the Azure Sentinel. All right. The next thing is Azure Key Vault. What is a key vault? You can see a key vault is a way by which we store our secrets in a centralized location. What do we call secrets? Secrets is one of the ways by which, okay, applications are connected to one another. You can use secrets to connect one Azure resource to another Azure resource as well. And this secret is being kept securely in what is called Azure Key Vault. Azure Key Vault uses a technology called HCM, which is Hardware Security Module. The security module will keep secrets, it will keep key and certificate. These are three major things that is being used apart from username and password. Okay, three other things that you can use to authenticate, either a service or a person. You can authenticate a service. You can authenticate a service like an application or an API. You can authenticate a service or, okay, a user through secret, key, and certificate. And these three are expected to be securely kept in Azure Key Vault. Why? Because Azure Key Vault is a hardware device, security device that is keeping this information. So the information is not being kept in a software, it is kept in a hardware. Okay, and that hardware is tamper proof. Is tamper proof. Tamper proof means if anyone, even who has access to the infrastructure of Microsoft, if anyone touches it or try to carry it out or move it, everything will be lost. So that is why it is very, very good for security. All right, so we can also see how to create Azure Vault. All you need to do is you can either type, okay, let me show. You can either come here and type it here. You can type, okay, this one has finished. It's telling me how much it will cost. I can click on create. All right, so if you want, you can come here and type, let me close this. You can come and type Key Vault. Just type key. See, it shows you Key Vault and you click on it. So this is a faster way, and you can click on create. The same procedure I've been using before. When you click on create, it will give you a similar window to all other ones we have been doing. Select your resource group, provide the name for the Key Vault. Key Vault, you can say Key Vault AZ 900. Specify the region where you should keep it. You put in the name. You can put South Africa. It will come up with South Africa North. Okay. And then the pricing tier, I leave it as standard. And I just click on create and review. The same procedure we have been using. Okay, so there's a problem with validation. All right, let's see. The Key Vault name is already used. Somebody has used this name. So I have to use another name, 2021. Okay, let's see whether this will pass the validation. Okay, so this one has passed validation, and then I can click on create. The same procedure is what you use to create all your resources. All right, what is Azure Dedicated Host? This will provide, I explained to you before, physical servers that will host one or more virtual machine dedicated to a single organization workload. So a company can decide to say, I don't want to share your server, the server you have in your data center. I want to be the only one to use a particular one. And that will give hardware isolation. That means that server, you are sure nobody else is using it. And that will give you control also over maintenance. That means you can decide to say, Microsoft, don't do anything on my server. Now, when I want you to do it, I will tell you. That is the control we are talking about. One of the benefits also is that some companies that are afraid of going cloud because of security, they can decide to use hybrid. Hybrid means that they can keep some data on their own server and also keep some data in a physical server that is used or dedicated to them alone inside of the Azure data center. Okay, secure connectivity. How can you connect securely to any of your resources in Azure? Security should be a multi-layer approach. Security is not supposed to be one approach. If you secure your data and you don't secure application, that will be an issue. If you secure application, you do not secure compute, that will be a loophole, and you are as secure as your weakest link. Okay? Every company is as secure as the company's weakest link. So if you do not use this layer, you will have a lot of weak link, and that will breach your security. So security should be in layered, and this provides multiple level of protection such that when a particular layer is attacked, it will not really affect the other layer. So if the physical layer is attacked, okay, that means somebody is able to probably get access into the location, physical location of, for example, Microsoft data center in Johannesburg. Because the person is able to get access to enter it does not mean the person can enter the server room. He can enter the compound. Even if he enter the server room, the person need to log in. He may not have access to log in. So if he logs in, he may not be able to do anything because there's a perimeter fencing through the computer IP address. And also, if he has access to this, he may not have access to this. So that is what we meant by defense in depth. Also, remember we mentioned before that there's what they call shared responsibility based on whether your data is on premise or you are subscribing to infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. What is the shared security? Before now, we mentioned shared responsibility when we talk about our in module 1 shared responsibility. We said there are some things that you are responsible for, and there are some things that the provider is responsible for based on either of these. But in this case, we want to talk about shared security. Security becomes a shared concern between both the cloud provider and customer. What are the security that you are responsible for? If you subscribe to software as a service, you are responsible for your own data governance. What does that mean? You are the one that will give access to people that will have access to your data. The provider, cloud provider, will never ask you to give them access to your data. No. They will not ask you to provide them the computer to use to connect to your software or to your application. No. The accounts and the access management will also be you that will set it up, even in a software as a service. Then for identity and directory infrastructure, that is where the account name is being stored, both you and Microsoft are the one responsible for that if you use software as a service. If you are using on-premise, you are the one responsible for everything. For the security at all the layers, you are the one responsible. If you are using infrastructure as a service, you are responsible for all of these ones, all these you are responsible for it. If you use the infrastructure as a service, if you use platform as a service, you are responsible for these three. Okay, and that is the way security is being controlled, so you don't pass blame to the provider. You don't say, oh, Microsoft, maybe you are the one hosting the Office 365, then help me to recover my email. Help me. No, 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 Microsoft can't help you with that. You are the one that needs to provide how to access the service you are subscribing to. You are the one to come up with data governance and provide different rights. And you are the one who can also decide to keep a backup of your data and delete where necessary or when necessary. All right. There is what they call NSG. What's NSG? Network Security Group. This will help to filter your network. It will filter network coming to Azure resources. It will also filter if Azure resources is allowed to communicate out. So both in and out traffic, both in and out traffic can be limited by using what is called the network security group. Okay, the traffic coming in and traffic going out. And to achieve this, we have to use IP address. So we specify the IP address of the source and the destination. Not only IP address, you also specify the port number. The port number is talking about the communication line that is being used, like a phone number, so to say, which is being used to communicate. And then the protocol. What is the protocol? Okay, how is the communication going to be done? Also, with your NSG, you can add users that as needed within your subscription limit. You can also apply the default security that Microsoft provides for you. So Microsoft provides the default one to secure your application. You can decide to override it and you can decide to create your own. So when we talk about the network security group, it uses what they call priority rules. Okay, what in my priority rules is that the lower the priority number, the higher the priority. So if you have a priority rule of Microsoft will start with about 300. If you want a priority that is higher than Microsoft own, then you have to choose a number between 100 and 200. And that means the security group will first analyze this one. It will secure based on what you have specified with a priority 100 or priority between 100 and 200 before coming to the priority of 300. Okay, firewall is another way you can secure your application or your resources. We have a stateful managed firewall as a service. That is what they call Azure Firewall. Azure Firewall is a firewall as a service. That means Azure has invested in firewall appliance. Your own is just to make use of it in order to grant access or deny access to a particular server based on the computer IP address, like the name of the computer, and that will help you to protect your network. It will apply to both inbound and outbound traffic. That is, even data from your Azure, you can limit how many of the network, okay, resources from your internal Azure can actually communicate with outside. So you can build a firewall. This will help to create high availability and also help us with cloud scalability. So you can scale easily and you can also use it when you need to work with Azure Monitor logging. Okay, all the login data or log data can also take advantage of Azure Firewall. That people will not go and delete the log file. If you set up a firewall, it will be difficult to just delete your log file. Okay, there's also what they call Azure Distributed Denial of Service, which is DDoS. This is a common attack. And what does this attack do? This attack overwhelm and exhaust network resources, thereby making application to be very slow and very unresponsive. And how does it do it? It will be hackers. Those are bad people. Hackers will be sending traffic, okay, to a particular service. And once they send traffic, every resource, like your VM, based on the CPU, the memory, they have a kind of a limitation to number of people that can concurrently be working there. So attackers normally ensure that they send so much, information to get the server not to be able to attend to genuine people, or the server will be very slow. So to prevent that, Microsoft has a solution called Azure DDoS. So with Microsoft Azure DDoS, it will filter when a particular traffic is coming from hacker, and it will prevent hackers from being able to deny people access to their network, which will contain CPU, DNS, and other services. Okay, we mentioned before defense in depth. Defense in depth also means that we need to combine different security solutions together. We have mentioned network security group, we have mentioned firewall. So you need to combine both network security group and firewall. Why? Because the different security solution, they all have their strengths in they have their strengths aligned to different layer. Your different security solution have their strengths aligned to different layers, and that is why one of the things you need to do is to combine different network solutions together. All right, so we can see how to secure our network. I will show you that in a moment. Okay, all right, so end lesson 4, but let me show you before we start lesson 5. All right, so if you come to all services here, you can type NSG. You can see when I type NSG, it knows that I'm talking about what? Network security group. So when I click on it, I can, by default, we have said it before, by default, Microsoft will create for you a network security group. You can create your own separately. Each time you create a virtual machine, for every virtual machine, Microsoft creates a default security group. Let us look at the one it created for this one. Okay, so this is the group. This is the network security group. The network security group that is created for my virtual machine is called the virtual machine minus hyphen NSG. That was created for me by Microsoft when I was creating my virtual machine. Remember, I'm the one that opened these ports. So it shows me based on the port I open, and you can see the port number 300. If I want to create another network security rule here, and I want it to take priority over this first one, then I will give it a lower number. By giving it a lower number, it will take priority over the one that is higher in number. So the lower the number that is here, the higher the priority that you have. So we set network security group for both inbound. That means people coming from internet or from the internet inbound, or the outbound. Outbound means the resource you have in your Azure being able to communicate or sending information outside of Azure. That is outbound. And this one is called inbound. Some people call it ingress and egress. It's the same thing as inbound and outbound. Any question on this before we go to lesson 5? Any question? Any question on this? Are we together? Okay, we're on the same page. All right, thank you. Okay, lesson 5, second to the last one. This module deals with identity, governance, privacy, and compliance. Identity, governance, privacy, and compliance. So, what are the outline? Here we want to look at how what are the identity services. That is, what are the services that is provided by Azure to identify users and services that wants to connect. Apart from identifying them, we also look at authorization. It is one thing to allow people to probably come in, for example, into your house. It's another thing to allow them after entering your house. Okay, you open the door for them, they enter. So the key that opens the door is authentication. When somebody enters the house, the next thing is, what can the person do in your house? That is authorization. Do you authorize the person to take your remote control and switch to any channel on the DSTV that he likes to watch? Or you will request and say, okay, which channel do you want to watch? Then you switch for the person. Will you be the one? Will you allow the person to go to your kitchen and cook? That is authorization. So we'll look at it in detail. We also look at how Azure is able to achieve authentication and authorization through these services: Azure Active Directory, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, and conditional access. We also look at how you can ensure that people are limited. What they can do is limited based on some permissions. And then with that, we look at RBAC, which is role-based access control. We look at how to make sure that a particular resource is being locked. That means people cannot delete the resource. And then we also look at how to use tag, which I've mentioned before. We look at policy, blueprints, okay? And we also look at Azure security and compliance. So let's start. Core Azure Identity Services. What are the core services? Again, why we mention core is because if you come here, if you come to all services, and then you come here and select secure identity. How many services do you have here? You have 23 that you can use. 23 resources that you can use for identity purpose. So we will not talk about all the 23. We'll just talk about the core ones. Okay? All right. The first thing is to look at the compare authentication and authorization. What is authentication? Authentication is a way you identify a person. I mentioned before, a person can be called a user or a service. You can also say a service is a user. But the way to identify who a person is and what is the service that wants to access a resource is through authentication. And to authenticate, there should be a request for legitimate access credential. There should be a credential that will be presented. The credential can be in different form. You can have credential in the form of password and username. Okay. You can have credential in the form of secret. You can have credential in the form of certificate as well. So it can be as simple as password and username. There must be a credential provided. Okay. On the basis of the credential, then people will be connected to the infrastructure or to the resource. Okay, and based also on what they use to authenticate, that can also determine the what to be loaded for them. What is authorization? Authorization is determining that somebody who has been authenticated. Very important. You cannot talk about authorization if somebody has not been authenticated. So the process must start from here. You must first be authenticated, then you are authorized to do or to access a data. So authorization will define what data can be accessed and what you can do with what you access. For example, you can have an authorization that says you'll be able to view, just to view like a report. You cannot make changes. You can have an authorization that will say you'll be able to write your data on top of the data that you are viewing. And you can have another one that says you'll be able to execute. Execute means you will be able to run commands. Okay, that is also another one. All right. Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, apology. See, this one, it tells me when there's a problem with the sound, and I know. You understand? So I also pause a little. Okay, I hope this is where you saw the last place you saw, right? This slide. Can you still see my slide? All right. So authorization follows authentication. Authorization determines what you can access and what you can do with what you can access. What you can view, can you do a write? Can you execute? Okay, execute means can you run a command on the platform or run a query on the table you are seeing. That is what authorization deals with. All right. One of the ways to secure people or to ensure that we have a good way to authenticate people is to make sure that we provide multiple way by which people identify themselves. Providing multiple way by which people identify themselves is called multi-factor authentication, where you have people provide username and password. After that, they must provide a key or a certificate before they can connect. They must provide a key, they must provide a certificate, okay, before they can actually connect. They can also be asked to provide some other devices, okay, before they can connect. And this one refers to password is something you know, right? Something you possess is this one. Okay, can you hear me? All right. Something you possess is you possess maybe a key, you possess a certificate to be able to connect. Then the third one is something you are. So in multi-factor authentication, it has to be a combination of at least two of these. It can be something you know and something you possess. It can be something you know and something you are, or a combination of all the three. So it can be two layer. Some people call it two factor. Okay, two layer factor. Some will call it three layers, depending on what you select. Okay, Azure Active Directory can also help us with authentication. Azure Active Directory is Microsoft Cloud Identity and Management Service. What do we call that? That is called IAM. This IAM is also worthy of note. You must know the abbreviation that your Azure Active Directory is a cloud-based IAM. Why we call it cloud-based IAM is because if you have Microsoft Server in your company, you currently have Active Directory. So similar to the Active Directory you have on premise, we have it in the cloud. It is called Azure Active Directory. However, please note your Azure Active Directory cannot do everything that the on-premise will do. Rather, you need additional one called Azure Active Directory Domain Services to work with this one to be able to achieve the same thing you can achieve with your Azure Active Directory on-premise. So this is your IAM, okay, which is in the cloud. The Active Directory is also IAM, which is on-premise. So with this Azure Active Directory, you can authenticate your user, you can use single sign-on, you can also manage application. It is applications that require service accounts. Okay, service account meaning they require a way by which they can connect multiple applications to each other. You can also use Azure Active Directory for business to business or business to customer identification. You can also use Azure Active Directory to authenticate a device. You can make sure that the device, which we normally call endpoints, that people are using to access the resources you have in Azure are devices that actually met certain criteria. Maybe the device must have a particular OS, the device must have a particular application running on them. So you can achieve that with AAD. All right, another thing you can do is to set conditional access. What is conditional access? Conditional access is used by Azure Active Directory to bring signals together to make decision, okay, and enforce organization policy. Every organization has a policy. The policy, such as your computer that is given to you in the office, you must not carry the computer outside of your geographical location without a permission. Why are they saying that? Because if you carry it outside of the geographical location, they can make sure that you cannot connect because the IP address, as you move from one geography to the other, as you move from one country to the other, the IP address, which is the internet protocol address of your computer that you are using to connect to the internet, will change. So organizations can have some conditional access that will make sure that You cannot connect to their application or to the resources or to any data if you do not meet certain condition. Condition can be you must belong to a particular group, you must work within a particular geography. Okay, that means they will do a geofencing of your computer IP address. You must use a certain device, you must connect through a particular application, and also apart from that one, they will detect your risk. Even if you met all these ones, they will run a risk analysis on you and be sure that your computer, for example, has not been compromised. Your computer has not been compromised by hacker or anyone else. So that is conditional access. Okay, so one of the ways we can manage access is through RBAC. RBAC means role based access. Role based access. So you can see how do you create RBAC. You can create RBAC. You can just look at this. Let's see. You can create your RBAC by, is this running? Okay, if it's not running, let me just show you right away. All right, so if you come here, you put RBAC. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay, roles. So you, okay, that is not available for search. Okay, so let me just go to a particular device, a particular resource I have. So I have a resource called virtual machine. Okay, if I open this virtual machine, I can see from this. All right, so I can do my RBAC. How do you do your RBAC? We do it, you can do it with this access control. Access control. Click on access control. Okay, when you click on access control, you will see role assignments. When you click on role assignments, it will show you all the available roles that is created to work with this virtual machine. And that applies to all resources. So currently now, you have one person who is what? A security admin. If I want to add additional role to myself on this virtual machine, I will come here and click on add, and I will do add role assignments. And then I will search for the role. There are a lot of roles here. Okay, I can say I'm giving myself the owner role. That means I'll have the rights, 100% rights on the virtual machine. And then I can also assign access to who? Assign access to users group. Okay, and I'll select the user from here. I can select myself, just search for myself, my name here. Okay, it's doing the search. So it has shown my name at Hotmail. So I click it, then I click save. So I have given myself that role. That is called role assignment. Okay. Now, if you want to see what are the available roles, you can come here and you will see a whole lot. These are all available role. Owner role. What is the meaning of owner role? If you extend here, it tells you owner means full access to manage all resources that pertain to this VM, including ability to assign the resources to somebody else. That is owner role. The second common role is called contributor. Contributor will give, so when you have owner role, you have access not on only one resources, all resources. Contributor role, you have also access on all resources, but you cannot assign the role to somebody else. As a owner, you can assign to other people. If you are a contributor role, you cannot assign. The next one says reader. With a reader role, you do not allow this person to make any changes. You can only view. You can't make changes. So these three are the broad group or broad categorization of roles is owner, contributor, and then reader. Apart from this, which apply to all resources, you can now pick a resource one by one and assign to that specific resource, to that particular resource or a specific resource, you can assign owner. For example, if I look for storage now, storage is one of a resource. I can decide to say what are the available roles under storage. You can see log analytics contributor. That's available role under storage. Okay. And you can come here also and click on add role assignment. And from here you can check for, I'm checking for storage. So it shows me storage. Select a role. Okay. I can search. These are available roles as relate to this particular VM. Okay. So if I go to a storage account, I can actually select other roles as well. As you can see here, these are all the roles. I can clear this. All available roles are all listed here. And you can also create your own. These are called built-in roles that Microsoft built. You can create your own custom role if you don't want to use the one of Microsoft. Okay. Azure governance methodology. How do you ensure that you have a strict governance in place? One is by using role-based access control, which I just showed you now. Okay, a role-based access control is simply called RBAC. This is a fine-grained access control. Fine-grained means that you can't give control a over a particular um, over a particular resource. You can give privilege down to resources. Okay, that is role based. With role based, there is a segregation of duty within the team and grant only the amount of access that people need to do their job. With a RBAC, you can enable access to portal and control what they can work with within the resource groups or resources. All right. So before now, I mentioned to you there are three major. We have the owner. Okay. We have the contributor. This is important for most of the exam as well. And we have the what? We have the owner, contributor. Who can tell us what the third one is? Owner, contributor, and reader. Those are the three. Okay. And reader. Those are the three major role-based access control. And then you can now have a blob owner, a blob contributor. That's a storage blob owner, storage blob contributor, a storage file owner, a storage file contributor or reader, as the case may be. Okay, you can also ensure that you lock a resource to protect people from accidentally deleting or making changes. You can lock resources. How do you lock resources? You can lock resources for the entire subscription. You can decide to say, I'm locking a resource within a group, resource group, and you can also lock individual resources. What are the two types of lock we have? You can do cannot delete and read only lock. When you have cannot delete, it means that the person can read that resource or the resources in the group or all the resource groups. When you have updates with this cannot lock, it means that the person can also update, it can make changes, but it cannot delete. You are blocking the person from deleting. With a read only lock, the person will only be able to view or read. He will not be able to make changes and they cannot delete. Okay. All right, so let's see how this works. I will show you now in a jiffy. All right, so let's see. Okay, so you can see I'm still in my VM. This is the, let me go to, this is my VM, virtual machine, up here. If I want to ensure that there is a lock, I don't want people to delete this virtual machine. If I scroll down under security, I'll see a lock. I click on lock. And I will see the two types of lock. So here, it will tell me to add a lock. Okay, add a lock to this resource. This is a resource now, not a resource group. So I click here. Then I will have to specify a lock name. Then I can say VM lock. Then I will specify what type of lock. Is it a read only or a delete? Delete means that the person can write, the person can read, but he cannot delete it. And I can write here, you cannot delete this VM. So I click OK. All right, now it has done it. You can't delete this VM. If I try to delete it, you will see it will tell me, okay, this is the, which one is the VM now? Okay, yeah, the AZ900. So if I try to delete it, I come here and I click on delete. I click delete. It will tell me I can't delete it. Why? Say delete fail, because I cannot delete it. I'm not allowed to delete. That is it. Fail to delete this one, the scope. Why? Because it is being locked. So that is a good way to prevent accidental delete, or to make sure that people cannot make changes. If you say read only, it means they will only be able to read. They can't make changes. They can't write, and they cannot delete. Okay, I've mentioned tag before. What is tag? Tag provides you metadata. A short word for metadata is data about data, or data about, let's just say data about resource in this case. Data about a resource. And why do we need this data? We need this particular data about this resource for the purpose of logically organizing our resources into a taxonomy. So you can see a tag can be one, it can be multiple tags. Okay, so when a particular thing is created like this one, you give it three tags. You say owner is Joe, department is marketing, environment is production. That is like, this is a web app. And we can say this web app is, the person that manages is Joe. It is used by marketing. Then this one, okay, you can come here and say this particular web app is being used by marketing department. That is call center, then marketing. So with this tag, it will help you to find useful information about the pricing. So one of the key value here is that it is useful for rolling up our billing information. Is help us to allocate the bill that is gotten from Microsoft to different departments or different cost center. All right, we have seen how to create this before, how to create tag. I've shown you how to do that. Okay, Azure policy. Azure policy helps to enforce organization standards, to enforce a standard, and to also ensure that compliance is adhered to. You need to provide Azure policy. So Azure policy is good for governance, and Azure policy will help to evaluate and identify the resources that does not comply with policy as well. And with Azure policy, you can also build in your own. So there are provided built-in policy that Microsoft has provided for us, and we can decide to build our own. But as far as policy is concerned, there are a whole lot that Microsoft has provided that you can use for storage, you can use for networking, you can use for compute. I'll give you an example. You can create a policy to make sure that anybody that creates a resource must use a tag. If they don't use a tag, that resource creation should not work, because you want to make sure that you want every resource to be tagged to the owner and the purpose. Okay, and you can also create a tag for a particular resource group. For example, if you want to create a resource group for developer to work, you can make sure that every resource there is being tagged developer. That is the way policy works. So how do we create a policy? It's very simple. We can come to this same place, type in here, you can type policy. All right, and it comes up with policy. You can have ordinary policy. You can also do a policy for firewall. Okay, so you come to policy here. All right, so for me, analyzing my current infrastructure, it says I am not compliant with the default policy that Microsoft has provided. Okay, and you can see a lot of policy here. You can come to assignments. Okay, and then you can see a whole lot. Okay, assign a policy. So from here, you can see a lot of policy that is available to be used. So we can come to overview. Overview tell us about the current policy okay, that is being applied based on what you have. You can click on getting started to be able to work with it. You can see how do you view assigned policy. You click on view. How do you assess compliance based on the policy? You click on this particular place. So this provides you a useful information from getting started on how you can work with policy. Okay, what is a blueprint? A blueprint is a collection of other things, like one, collection of policy information where you have your roles assignment, collection of RBAC, which we use to create role-based access, collection of your policy, collection of your templates. This is called ARM templates, okay, and collection of your resource groups. That is what you call a template. Why do you need a template? With a template, it makes it easier to rapidly build and set up a new environment. Why? Because all the things you need to set up the environment and to ensure compliance with everything, you can put them together inside of Azure Blueprints. So another advantage of Azure Blueprint over ARM, because Azure Blueprint is similar to ARM. The only difference between Azure Blueprint and ARM is that with Azure Blueprint, you can easily attach RBAC policy. Apart from that, you can keep different version of your blueprints. With a blueprint, you can have version that you can do version control on your blueprint. So with Azure Resource Manager, you can't do version control. You just create several templates. So you can bring templates together with policy, with RBAC, and specify the specific resource group and create it as Azure Blueprints. Okay. Also, there's what they call Cloud Adoption Framework. A Cloud Adoption Framework is Microsoft approach that can help you to adopt clouds. Some companies are skeptical about cloud. They're not sure whether cloud is good for them, whether cloud is going to work well, whether there will be security issue, whether their users can work with it or not. So for such people, Microsoft has something called Cloud Adoption Framework, which will give best practice for best practice that is coming from Microsoft employee. They will share with you how customers in your industry has been able to adopt cloud. They will tell you about the advantages, what they benefited from it. So they also give you tools, guidance, give you strategies that you can use to begin your cloud journey. Okay, privacy, compliance, and data protection. Microsoft also ensure that they design everything they design. All their resources, all their services are designed from ground up with security in mind. Also, Microsoft is committed to ensuring that the privacy of organization throughout the time the organization is in agreement with them, the privacy is not being shared. Also, Azure or Microsoft respect local law and regulation. And that is why they will not allow you to put your data. They will not do a peering. They won't do a peering for you outside of your legal jurisdiction. They will not go and peer you with a resource in maybe Asia, okay? Because a lot of people are afraid of Asia country, and then they will only peer Asia with Asia. Even in Asia, they will only pair China with another China, maybe China West with another China North, and not pair China with the likes of India, even though they are both in the same geography. Compliance terms and requirements. Microsoft provides the most comprehensive set of compliance. That is Microsoft Cloud Services. Okay, all the services that you can use on Microsoft, meaning all the resources you can use, all the services, they all comply with regulations, standard regulations like NIST, ISO. They have a lot. This is not all. They have a lot of regulations that they comply with. And that's supposed to give you some confidence in adopting cloud. Microsoft privacy statement. Microsoft also provide you openness and honesty, so you can read about their privacy statements, which will tell you what kind of data that Microsoft is processing, and they will tell you how Microsoft is processing it and the purpose your data is being used for. So you can always read the Microsoft privacy statement before you sign up with Microsoft Cloud. Also, there is an online service terms and data protection addendum, which will help to protect your data. That means Microsoft also comply with the current South African, regulation around data protection that started yesterday. Trust Center. You can learn more about security, privacy, compliance, and different products of Microsoft from a website called Trust Center. So this is good for those who have not adopted cloud or those who are using Azure Cloud for a minimal service. You can go to Trust Center to get in-depth expert information that can help you to make business decision as to adopting Azure Cloud. So you can access your Trust Center, access Service Trust Portal, and compliance. So all these three, they have a website where you can go to access it. You can see this is the website that Microsoft provides you. HTTP document compliance regulation offering home. From here, you get information about Microsoft compliance offering. Okay, Azure compliance documentation. Microsoft also provides a comprehensive compliance offering to help organizations to be able to adopt Azure. For example, there are some Azure cloud that is dedicated to government agency, like the US government. We also have another one for China government. Okay, there are some Azure that are also dedicated to industry and to region. So all these Azure compliance documentation, they are available in a public website. You don't need to have subscription to be able to read them. Azure sovereign rights. Azure creates some data center dedicated to certain governments. Okay, and we have example of US government, and the one for US government is only meant for US government agency alone. It is isolated from anybody who is not working with US government, and it can only be accessed, that is access to that data center is only granted to anyone who has been screened or and also authorized to be able to do it. And based on the requirement of the US government, this data center comply with all standards, all compliance standards. There's another one too, which is called the Azure Sovereign Region, meant for China. So Microsoft is China's first foreign public cloud provider, which comply with all the regulation of China. Okay, and this also will of course stay within the China region. Okay, so that ends lesson 5. Any question? Any question before we take the last lesson? Okay, I hope it's not too much overload. Oh, super fast. Okay, but please, if there's anything you did not get, you can stop me. Okay. All right, thanks for that understanding. So, but if you have any question, please, you are free to tell me. You are free to stop me so that I can explain further anything that you missed, anything that you probably did not hear very well. You need clarity, let me know. All right, the last module is module 6, talking about the Azure pricing and life cycle. It is good to know how much will it cost me if I have learned about Azure. I want to advise my company to embrace Azure. I need to be able to tell them, give them an idea of how much it will cost the company. Okay, and to achieve that, Microsoft provides you different tools, and many of these tools are free. They are on a public website so that you can check what are you spending now, and then if you go to cloud with the same thing, what are you going to save? So we will look at different methods for managing costs. how can you manage costs? What are the factors that affect costs when you are in the cloud? Also, we look at the different SLA that you can work with to know what is the probability that my service in the cloud can go down. The probability can be 0.0001 depending on the different services you are using. So let's look at the planning and cost management. Planning and cost management. So here we identify the factors that can affect our costs. Factors like the type of resource, the services, the location where it is, ingress and egress. Ingress is like your network security group for inward traffic. Egress is for traffic that is leaving your Azure services or Azure resources to the internet or to the public. We also look at the factors that can reduce costs. How can you reduce costs? If you pay for reserved instances, if you reserve capacity, Microsoft will give you some discounts. Also, we look at functionality and how you can use pricing calculator. So Microsoft provides two calculators. One is called pricing calculator. That will tell you how much each of the resource type will cost you based on location. How much it will cost you to bring data out of your, out of your resources. How do you bring data out of your database? That they will show you the cost. Another cost is total cost of ownership. The major difference between the two of them is that when you talk about total cost of ownership, they will want you to compare what you currently run on your own private cloud or what you run on your own on-premise. Compare it with what you will spend if the same thing is deployed in the cloud, and they will show you your savings, okay, over 3 years, 5 years, depending on the option you select. All right, so what are the factors that can affect cost? One, there are 6 primary factors that can affect cost. One is resource type. There are some resources that consume so much money. So the resource that you use will determine how much you will pay. The second one is the service that you use. Service, these are talking about things that are not requiring you to create a VM. Things that you use, like your web app. Okay, you can also get billed based on the service you select. So the Azure usage rates and billing period can also differ between enterprise, web direct, and cloud service provider customers. So Microsoft also have different type of customer. There are some customer they call enterprise customer. There are some that are web direct that just go to the internet of Microsoft and then they sign up with Microsoft. There are some that sign up with Microsoft using enterprise agreements, and there are some people who are reselling for Microsoft. Okay, so the amount that Microsoft will charge each person also differs because each person is also using different services. For example, the cloud service provider, okay, who are customers of Microsoft, many a times they will be paying for VM because they have the capability to manage many of the things that Microsoft will have managed for them if they were to be web direct customer or enterprise customer. Also, where you locate your data also determines the cost. Azure cost is distributed globally, and the usage will vary from location to location. It may be cheaper if you put resources in some part of US than when you put it in South Africa. But it's going to be a trade-off because it may be cheaper, but may be a bit slower than when the resource is in South Africa. The other one is bandwidth. Bandwidth, we'll talk about your inbound data transfer, the kind of data that can be transferred. Now, inbound transfer is free. That is very important. This is also a typical exam question. Inbound data is free. That means the data you enter, so to say, into Azure, you can freely enter the data. But the outbound, when you are bringing out the data, when data is being transferred, then you pay based on what size of data you are transferring between different data center, and this price is also based on your zone. Remember we mentioned availability zone, whether your data is residing in 3 different data center or in one data center. Another factor that can affect cost is reserve instance. Instead of, so the ways by which you can subscribe and use pay as you go pricing. That means Microsoft will only charge you for what you use, truly. However, you can also decide that I know that if you know the resources you will use for a long time, assuming you have a project you are doing, and this project is for 12 months, okay, that means 1 year, you will save on costs if you reserve all the Azure resources that you need to support your project. If you reserve them for 1 year, Microsoft can give you up to 72% discount. If you reserve it for up to 3 years, you can get 72. Maybe if you reserve for 2 years, they can give you maybe 50% and all that. So you can get reduction if you know your workload and you know how long you need a particular infrastructure. So as you do reservation, you get some discounts. Okay. Then Azure Hybrid. So this one is like entering a contract. That's what it means. When you can compare this reserve instance to when you are talking about telecom. You can buy a telecom card. You can buy a telecom SIM card, okay? And you'll be buying data yourself, right? You can be buying 10 gig data every month. If you like, you can change it next month and say, okay, I'll buy 2 gig data. That is like pay as you go. Then the reserve is like, okay, I want to sign a contract with maybe Vodacom. Vodacom, I'm signing a contract with you. I want you to reserve for me 10 gig of data every month. With that, you will get it cheaper than when you buy on the go. That's an example of reserve instance. The last factor that can affect cost that you pay is the Azure Hybrid Use Benefit. What this one means is that if you have some licenses, on premise, that is, if you have licensed your SQL server, if you have licensed SQL server, okay, if you have licensed some database like SQL server, if you have licensed your Windows server, the operating system, as you move the Windows server to the cloud or SQL to the cloud, you can get it cheaper because your on-premise license you are paid for will help you to get a discounted price of using the same thing in the cloud. Okay, there's a pricing calculator, like I mentioned, which is a tool that will give you an estimate of your different Azure products that you select. As you select the different products, you will see the pricing change. For example, you will ask you to start with region. When you select a region, you can select like West US, then you select your operating system you want to use, and then also select the tier, whether standard, and then you can also select the memory that you want, the number of virtual CPU you want, the memory, the temporary storage space you want, and that will tell you how much. You can see as you click on this, it will tell you how much it will cost you. And when you do this selection, you will see an estimate. This is an estimate that based on what you have selected, if you run it, Azure will charge you per hour. If you remember, most of the charges, even when it shows you per month, at the end of the day, it will break it down to per hour. So you can specify how many hours you want to run your virtual machine. Okay, I'm sure that it is not every company, for example, that have staff working 24/7. It's not every company that has 24/7 staff. So for companies or organization that their staff is working maybe 8 by 5, what does that mean? Their staff will work for 8 hours 5 days a week. Such people can calculate how many hours in a month they will need a VM, and they can create a top up. So if you work 8-5, it means that you only need it for 40 hours a week. How many weeks make a month? We have 4 weeks in a month. So you can say if I'm using it for 40 hours in a week, if I multiply it by 4 weeks, it means that in a month I only need it for what? 260 hours. So you can pay for just the 260 hours, and that will be cheaper than paying for 730 hours. You can also say, okay, even though it is 260 hours, let me make it 300 hours. Okay, sorry, thank you. 160 hours, yeah. 40 by 4 is 160, so you can have 160 hours as against 730. And you can say, okay, let me just give provision for emergency, where I may have people that will come and work on weekend. So because of that, I can increase from 160 and put in the budget 200 hours. And that will still be cheaper than 300 hours or 730 hours. Okay, so we'll see example of how to work with that now. All right, so there's a website that Microsoft actually provide us to be able to work with this. And you can go to, it's a public domain. Let me show you. If you just type in Google, type anywhere in the search, just type Azure Price Calculator. Azure Price Calculator. It's opening for you. Just click on this Azure Price Calculator. So I don't need to sign in to be able to use this. It is free. So when you come here, you can select any of these things you want to see how much it will cost you to use any of these services that Azure is providing. So you come down here, it's trying to come with estimate. So I can start by clicking virtual machine. When I select virtual machine, it will upload it for me. You can see, I will see it down here. And then it's telling me I'm not paying any upfront money. By default, it says I can pay as much as 520. That is if I'm hosting it in West US. Let me choose South Africa now. You will see the price will change. Under Africa, if I choose South Africa North, Johannesburg, okay, and then I choose the operating system I want. I choose Linux, for example. Tell me what type of Linux. I will choose, okay, maybe Ubuntu. I can leave it at basic tier, and then okay, but you can see immediately it tells me pricing is not available for selection in my region. So I can't get pricing of these things if I'm choosing South Africa. So let me see if I change it to Windows, okay, and then choose standard. See that it has changed. If I want to use basic, it's telling me I can't use it in South African region. I have to choose. If I choose low priority, okay, I can use low priority in South Africa, and then you can see it is now $64 as against initially when it was giving me 100 and something, 100 and something, okay, dollar. I can come here as well and decide to say, okay, I don't want it for 730 hours. I can scroll down and come here and select something. Okay, see, I can say, okay, based on my calculation, my staff work for 160 hours per month. Let me even give provision for extra hour. 40, so 160, which is 40 times 4. If I had additional 40 hours, 200 hours. Okay, for 200 hours, how much will it cost me? The price has dropped from $50 to $17. Okay, that is if I am paying pay as you go. If I know that I want to use Azure for a project that is 1 year, I can come and select a reserve. That means everything I want to reserve it for a year. Also, if I have my own license, if I have a license already for the things I want to use, I've collected the license from Microsoft, I've paid for the license of Microsoft Server, I can click on this. When I click on this, it will also reduce the money. You see, the money has reduced to $5 per month based on the fact that I currently have a license that I have from Microsoft. So Microsoft will take away the license cost of $12.44 from me. Okay, that is giving us idea of average of how much you have. And you can also add disk. Are you going to need a disk? Select the disk. Okay, Is it a standard HDD or SSD? You select. Okay. How many do you need? You can select I need 2, I need 3. As you select, it will give you the price. These are the pricing. Okay. If you are done, you can decide to export your what it has shown you. You can export it. Export all these things. Okay. And it will come out in a good format. Let me just open it for you. It's coming out in Excel format. What I've selected. So you can use this to say, okay, based on my estimates, if we use this and we host it in South Africa, Johannesburg, because if you choose another region, if you choose Johannesburg West, which is Cape Town, the price won't be the same. Many a times the price will be higher. So this is how much it will cost me, $6.6 per month. Okay, and the company can say, wow, this is good. Let's start with this. And that is a way you can work with pricing. All right. Another tool available or another website tool, which is public site, is called total cost of ownership. With total cost of ownership, you can estimate your total cost savings by migrating to Azure. So what this will do, which is the difference between total cost of ownership calculator and pricing calculator, is that total cost of ownership can do a comparison for you. It will compare and give you an advice of how much you are spending on premise. If you come to cloud, you can see you will spend, you see, 59 $595,000 as against this. And what would that give you? That will give you 7%, 43% on networking, and 50% savings on storage. So if you look at this, that is telling you how much you will save. So here you will spend as much as this, and here you will spend as much as this. So this does a comparison. So the total cost of ownership is to get comparison between what is costing you now to maintain your data center and how much it will cost you if you move your data center workload to Azure. Okay, so there's a website where you can get this information as well. The website is provided for you also in your material, and you can equally search for it. It is something you can search for. Okay, this is the website. You see, it is similar to the one I opened before, but the difference is that this one has TCO. That means total cost of ownership. It will compare your cost you are running now, and they tell you how much it will cost you if you move to cloud, and give you what you will save from being in cloud, what you save for being on premise. At the end of the day, it is always cheaper to be in the cloud than to use a full on premise. All right, Microsoft also provides you something. If you have become a customer of Microsoft, you now have Azure. You can use a tool called Azure Cost Management to get your billing reports. You can also use it to get a lot of visualization about your data. You can use this to also set budgets, how much you plan to spend. Remember, we have a particular site where you can use to calculate your costs. Once you are able to use that one to calculate your costs, the next thing, once you use pricing calculator, if you use a pricing calculator to have an idea of how much it will cost you, the next thing you can do immediately you subscribe is to go and set a budget. Set a budget against the pricing idea you have gotten from your pricing quotes or from the pricing calculator. So based on the value you get from pricing calculator, you can set budget. Where do you set your budget? Under Azure Cost Management. And you can also set alerts. Anytime you are exceeding or about to exceed your budget, alert will come by email to tell you that you are already near limits for your budget, or you are about to go beyond your budget. You can also get recommendation. You want to know whether you are even underutilizing some resources. Microsoft can give you advice through recommendation, which is part of what you get from Azure Cost Management. How do you access Azure Cost Management? You come to Azure Portal, Okay, from your Azure portal, you can access the cost management. From Azure portal, you can access cost management. All right, so here I can type costs, Azure costs. Okay, when I put cost, it tells me I can come to what? Cost management, which is for billing. Select it. So here I can see my billing, current billing. Okay, I can see my billing. I can export to CSV my billing. And then here you see my cost management. It will give information about your cost management. You can come here and see the cost broken down based on management group, which is a collection of subscriptions. When you have multiple subscription, you create a management group. Okay, so from your cost management, you can create a budget. So if you come to this side, you can create a budget. You can create an alert to give you an alert once your budget is almost used up. And you can see your invoices here. You can also see the payments you have made so far. All of this you can get from your cost analysis, from your cost management interface on the portal. Okay, how can you maximize your cost? How can you maximize your cost? You can maximize your cost by going through this step. One, make sure you have an idea of how much it will cost you by using your pricing calculator. Use pricing calculator, use the total cost of ownership calculator. Use these two first to have an idea of how much it will cost you when you run anything in the cloud. After you have used it, then you need to monitor your usage with Azure Advisor. See whether you are using more than what you put in your Azure pricing calculator or you are using less. And when you get suggestion from Azure Monitor, make sure you implement the recommendation because it will save you costs at the end of the day. You can also minimize your costs rather than maximize. Minimize your costs by using spending limits. Okay, this spending limits you can achieve that by creating a free trial account first. Okay, or create some credit based Azure subscription. Azure can give you some credits. Also, you can use Azure reservation. We have mentioned that before. You can also reserve for 1 year instead of doing pay as you go. You can reserve for 1 year. You can reserve for multiple years. You can also bring in your license, the on-premise license. That will also reduce your cost of running anything in the cloud. You can also choose a low cost location if you don't mind the latency. Latency means if you don't mind the fact that there may be some milliseconds, okay, it may be slow a bit, less than 1 second difference from when you host it in a costly region, as long as your legislation allow you to host it in such region. After that, you can also keep up to date with the latest Microsoft subscription offer. Microsoft also do offer some discounts, and you can keep up to date by subscribing to it. And lastly, you can also apply tag. Tag will identify who is the owner of a particular resource. And if a particular owner is consuming too much, you can also have a chat with the owner to minimize his consumption as the case may be. All right, the last part, SLA and service life cycle. Microsoft provides service life agreements, service level agreements, which is a commitment for uptime and connectivity. That is, Microsoft has a commitment that shows you that their service can go down. For example, they have 99.99% SLA. That means the service can go down 0.0. Okay, if you take away this one from 100, what are you going to get? 0.01. Yes. So 0.01% of the time you can have a downtime. That is what this 99.9 means. Okay, so it means that in a year, if you convert this one multiplied by how many hours in a year, that will tell you how many hours the server will go down. If you convert how many seconds are in a day, You multiply it by this percentage, it will tell you for how many seconds Microsoft service or Microsoft particular resource will go down. So the SLA is provided for you. Even before you buy the service, you can preview the SLA, know what you are buying or know what you are paying for. So you can see these are the SLA available. You can have 99%. That means there will be 1% downtime. 1% downtime, if you convert it to the number of seconds in a year, in a month, it will give you a 7 hour, 18 minutes, 17 second downtime. That's the maximum you can have in a month. Also, when you combine several resources, when you have a resource that is doing web application, and that resource for infrastructure as a service, and that resource firewall, when you mix multiple resources or products together, you need to be able to, on your own, do a calculation of the available time. And the way to do it is to multiply the individual SLA, and that will give you the SLA you can get. What are the actions that can affect SLA? Yeah, good question. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, yes, you can. Yes, you can mix XLA. So what I'm saying is that if you mix SLA, and that's very important, if you mix XLA, you must multiply all the SLAs of individual ones together to be able to know possible downtime. The SLA many a times are aligned to resources and services. So if you have, let's say, app service now, okay, as a service, it has its own SLA. If you are using firewall, Azure firewall, it has its own SLA. So what you are expected to do is to multiply the SLA here, multiply by the SLA of this one to be able to get the total SLA for your complete infrastructure or your complete Azure subscription. How can you lower your SLA? You can lower your SLA as you add more services. SLA will be lower because you are now mixing the one of 99.9 with the one of 99. You can also choose free or non-SLA service. There are some services that are free, that is no SLA. Microsoft is not promising you anything. Why? Because maybe the service is an open source application. They can't promise you anything on that one. For such services, there will be no SLA. You can increase your SLA. How can you have a better SLA? By making sure that you keep your data in multiple data center. That is availability zone. Okay, multiple data center. That will increase your SLA. Also, you can have redundant system. Redundant system means you have multiple systems, and all the systems are doing the same thing, or you have a system that is just waiting to take over if another system should fail. That is redundant system. Remember, we call that one RAID. In IT, there's something called RAID. Different RAID level. RAID means redundant array of independent disk. Many factors can raise or lower your SLA. You must make a good decision on your business goal. Is your goal to increase your SLA, or your goal is to lower your SLA? All these also will have implication on your costs. Okay, so you can get detail about your SLA as well. There are websites where that information is provided for you. Okay, you will see the website now on the screen. So Microsoft provided this website, azure.com SLA. So from this website, you can get to know about the different SLA available for app service, for Active Directory, for gateway, for SQL. You can get to know the SLA, how available it will be before you even subscribe at all. Okay, Azure Preview Program. Azure has what they call a preview program. A preview program means a program that you can use to test some of the pre-release feature. If there is any feature of a software or product that Microsoft has not fully released, you can check it by going to the preview website. Also, there are public preview where all customers can evaluate new features. Remember, they say all customers. All customer means you already have what? You already have Azure account and you have a subscription. Then you are an Azure customer. So if you're an Azure customer, you can go to public preview and evaluate the new services that Microsoft has as a in their testing phase or that is yet to be fully released. Then there's what they call GA. GA means generally available. After Microsoft has done enough testing, then they will make whatever they have in their preview that has passed a rigorous test, they will make it available. However, it will not be available immediately in all regions. They will determine which region can afford to pay, which region requires it more, and that is the region where such service will be made available. You can also monitor your service and your future updates. You can get to know what are the new features that Microsoft is planning to release by going to this site called Azure Updates. You will get the detail about that. So to go to preview, you can go to the website preview.portal.azure.com. For me, that I am already a customer, I will go to preview.azure.com to be able to achieve that. I'll do that after this slide. Okay, you can also open a support request. If you need support, maybe there's a problem with something you are doing on the Azure, it's not working well, you can raise a support ticket. Microsoft provides you the opportunity to raise support tickets. Okay, so you can raise your support ticket, and then you can so you can click on help. When you type help, it will bring you help and support in your Azure portal. You click on help and support, and from there you can log your ticket and they will respond to you as to what you need to do. So you can see help and support, and then you can click, you can see support plan. You can click on new support request and you raise the request and Microsoft will support you. Okay, that ends this lesson. But I mentioned I was going to show you something which was that now? Okay, preview. Okay, let's go to preview. All right, so this is my main portal. I can go to preview.portal.azure.com. So this will show me, you see, you must be a customer. Without being a customer, it can't open for you. Okay, so this will show me the preview, show me a lot of Azure services, Azure resources that are available for testing that has not been fully deployed. So I will also see those things that are fully deployed here. I'm seeing what is deployed and what is not deployed. But I can see majorly all the things that are not. So you can see it changes. This is what Microsoft Azure. Then you put in bracket preview. Preview means that if I click anything here that is not in general availability and it fails, I may raise a ticket, but I should not expect or hold Microsoft bound to be able to make it work if it is not in general availability. Microsoft is not duty bound to make whatever service fail under preview to make it work for me because it is not yet in general review. It's still at testing phase. Okay, so that ends this lesson or this topic. I don't know whether anyone has